So this is a video about Highway 129, also known as Deal's Gap, Tail of the Dragon, and this is kind of the start of the ride in North Carolina. I'm going to do a little bit of commentary here so you kind of get an idea of what this road is all about. As you can see here, there's a few people gathering in the parking lot right now. But this is basically empty. The whole place is empty this early in the morning. This was Friday morning, the end of May when I came up. And I really like riding this road, but I almost always stay away from the entire place on the weekends because it's just simply chaos. That's when most people come up here to ride, and it's just insane. And you will see throughout the whole video, almost the whole video, I'm riding at a moderate pace, which is almost impossible on the weekends unless you want to take some really risky moves and pass people. You're going to have to go at the pace of the slowest rider, which this place is littered with on the weekends. And I think you should probably go up there and just see it. Maybe take a pass, one pass. Now I'm rolling into the state of Tennessee right now, so it's a real small section that's in North Carolina. But as I was saying, I don't want to discourage you to try to ride it on the weekends. That's when most people can get out here. But what I would encourage you to do is your first time through, take it nice and slow and casual, and get up there as early as you can or as late as you can in the evening, preferably on a Sunday evening, or if you can before the weekend. And morning is always better. Seems like there's a few people that, like me, that like to get up there and beat the crowd. But you'll see me passing quite a few people coming the other way, coming back into North Carolina. But I only pass two motorcycles going the same direction, and they were actually going fairly quick pace, which is odd. You don't see a lot of folks like that. You see a lot of either really slow cars or really slow cruiser riders. You don't see a lot of people riding fast on the weekends, just because it's just a parade. I call it a parade because it's just a long line of bikes and cars, and it's just miserable. You might get a few patches where there's no vehicles, but you're going to be behind somebody. You're going to be going 15-20 miles an hour most of the way, and when you get on the straights and the straight passes where you can see around the corners, it's everybody lights it up. You get up to 45 miles an hour on the straights like this one here. So it makes it even harder to pass because people throttle out. But you can't pass 15-20 bikes very easily. You have to do it in sections, and everybody's going 10-15 miles an hour, so you can't fit in between the few bikes and cars that you pass. So it's not fun. In addition, if you're a new rider or if you're not comfortable riding on twisty roads like that, it could be kind of intimidating having all this traffic taking up your attention, and that's probably a bad combination too. So that's another reason why I would say ride it early in the morning and not on the weekends if you can. I think this is a road. This is an epic road. This is something that everybody that rides a motorcycle should put on their bucket list. This is one of those roads that you should come to see. But in addition, the trip out here, when you get out here, there's several fantastic roads out here. This is not the only one. This is probably just the most well-known, maybe one of the most well-known roads in the world. People come from all over the world to ride 129. The Dragon. So it's not unusual to see people from from foreign countries that either bring their bikes over or rent a bike over here and, slay the dragon. That's what they call it. Slay the dragon. Yeah. Well, honestly, though, this thing does eat bikes and people just because people don't really understand what this road is about. There's a lot of curves in here that will bite you, and there's a lot of other things that will bite you, including having the whole road loaded up with people driving and riding machines that they shouldn't be riding out here, and they definitely shouldn't be riding beyond their skill level, and that happens a lot. You'll see people crossing the paint, crossing into the other lane because they're trying to keep up with their buddies in front, and they'll come into your lane, and it causes a disaster, and it happens. I would say probably every single weekend in the summer. There's crashes up here. There's been several fatalities. The tree of shame, I'll show you at the end. That's where they hang parts and pieces of motorcycles that they've pulled out of the woods out here, and they hang them on trees, and just kind of show you that this road is not to be toyed with. This road is, it's a racetrack for some. It's a social event for others, and it's also a badge of courage for many, people that drive long distances to come here and get their sticker and their shirt and call themselves a dragon slayer. But it's a really interesting place. I encourage everybody to come and visit, whether or not you ride a motorcycle or not. Come out here in your car and just see how insane this place is. It's 318 curves in 11 miles, I think. Probably more curves than anywhere else in the world in that tight of space. And the curves are difficult. They're, 200 plus degrees of rotation on some of these. Seems like you're going in circles sometimes. But it's dizzying, it's disorienting, but mostly it's a blast when there's just open road in front of you, and just to be able to get out here and ride on basically a racetrack. If you want to go fast, you can go fast. If you want to drive in the parade, just wait till about 9 o'clock when everybody else shows up, and you can jump in the parade and ride 15-20 miles an hour from one end to the other, and then turn around and go back again. It may seem like I'm a little bit angry at the slow riders and cars and things, and maybe I am. I think it's less angry and more frustration in that this is just such an amazing road, but it gets polluted every weekend, and just adds to the amount of distractions up here, and it's just such a pure thing without it. And speaking of distractions, you'll notice these little pop-ups along the road. There's probably more this year than I've ever seen before. I would say there's probably 4 or 5 vendors. There's even a new guy, Moonshine Photo, I think I saw. I was kind of shocked to see a new guy up here, because Killboy has been up here for years. Killboy.com. They're pretty awesome. I sat down and got an interview with another vendor. I think it was 129 Photo. Anyway, there's several vendors up here, and it's just a bunch of kids sitting under a pop-up, taking pictures of everything that drives by, and it tends to distract. And I'm not anti-photographer. I think it makes the place even more interesting. But a lot of people will tell you that it's the reason for all the crashes. And of course, I would strongly disagree with that. although there's quite a few crashes that happen right in front of the photographers. The reasons are distraction, whether it's somebody that's under a tarp taking pictures, whether it's the fact that the biker is trying to look cool, waving at the photographer, or trying to show off, or whatever the heck he's doing. He could be doing that with young ladies standing on the side of the road, or other bikers, or whatever the other distraction is. The photographers have every right to be up there. Like I said, I think they make the place more interesting. And if you're going to crash over some distractions in a corner, you're going to crash with a squirrel. You're going to crash with, somebody going slow. You're going to crash with loud bikes coming around the corner that spook you. So distraction is the problem. It's not anything in particular, although it does tend to. There's a lot of crash pics up here, just because people get distracted, and some of the corners that they choose are some of the tougher corners. It makes it more interesting to take a turn or take a photo in a corner rather than a long straight. I don't think they're out there to take crash photos, but it's just a result. Anyway, lots of interesting concepts, lots of interesting things going on up here. You can cruise through some of the photo sites, 129photo.com, killboy.com, Moonshine Photo, 129 Slayer. There's all kinds of stuff. I think just look up Dragon Photos and you'll probably find all the interesting stuff you can stomach. or you could just Google Dragon motorcycle crash. You'll see all kinds of interesting stuff. There's no limit to the stupidity that you see up here. Mostly it's just inexperienced people riding motorcycles too fast or way beyond their ability, and being distracted by other things that are going on up here. It's pretty easy to do, and this is not the only road. This is just one of the more well-known roads. There's a lot of tricky turns on some really fast roads up here, and people just not paying attention. Quite often I'm looking off into the woods or at the scenery, at the panorama, and I'm not paying attention. And, a corner comes up quicker than I thought, or it's a lot harder of a turn than I imagined, or decreasing radius. There's all kinds of stuff. Sometimes there's trees in the road. Sometimes there's bikes in the road. Sometimes more often than not, there's bikes and cars coming the other way that are cutting the corner, which is a huge problem out here, which is another reason I don't like to ride on the weekends. Not just the sheer number of people that are riding out here, slowing you down, getting in your way, but there's so many more coming the other direction that are in your lane because they can't stay in their lane. They're going too fast, they don't know how to turn, and they're making the assumption that there's nobody coming around the corner. And on the weekends, there almost always is. So I keep saying, you need to come up here. Everybody needs to ride the road. Everybody needs to come up here just to see how beautiful it is. But just be aware of what's going on up here, because it's different than probably every other road that you've been on, just because the turns are so tight. The pavement is so pristine and perfect, but the turns are banked. There's bank turns, there's decreasing radius turns, there's all kinds of obstacles and distractions and things that can get in your head. And the elevation changes, it's really hard to see the elevation changes on video. Let's see if I can find some pictures in here to show you some elevation changes, because it's dramatic. It's 40, 50, 150 feet sometimes, where you're going downhill into a turn like this one, and then you're going back up the hill, and you'll turn the corner and you'll go back down the hill. It makes cornering a lot harder when you're gaining speed into the corner, if you're not engine braking or if you're not on a brake. And I'm about to catch up to my first obstacles here. These folks, they're actually running a fairly good pace, but the little girl up front, obviously she's either a new rider or she's not. She doesn't really have as much skill as probably she needs up here, but she's actually running probably right at the speed limit, so I can't fault them. But she was coming to almost a stop coming into the corners. You know, she'd run it up to the speed limit in the straights, and then she'd just about come to a stop in the corner, and the old guy that was behind her wasn't doing her any help. And usually I try to be careful around the slow folks, because you never know what's going to spook them. It may just be jumping around them like I'm about to do, that may spook them enough to make them run wide or lock the brakes up or run into a ditch. And I kind of thought about all that stuff, but I also wanted to get past them, so I got around her, and we're coming up to the overlook here, which I think is the actual end of the Dragon. That's what most people ride, but I'm going to go on down to the lake. Enjoy all the turns up here. It's just seems like an endless stretch of road with turns. It's a little bit hypnotic. If you take it at a fast enough pace, it's hypnotic. It kind of tends to hypnotize you a little bit into just bouncing back and forth. It's happened to me a few times on some other roads where, you know, I'm riding for hours and hours and just the twisting and turning, it just kind of hypnotizes you and kind of lulls you into a sleepy state almost, or at least it makes me really tired. And here we're going up to the overlook here on the left, and you can look down and see the dam, and this is where most people turn around and go back up the Dragon, but like I said, I wanted to go down to the lake, and it's, you know, I hate that so many people miss out on this portion, because it's several more turns. I would say maybe 4 miles, 3 miles, 4 miles, maybe even 5 miles down to the lake where it flattens out. But I hate to think that people turn around at the overlook and, you know, don't pay any attention to this downhill section, because this is almost all downhill right here and going down to the lake. But still some nice curves up here. A lot of times there's less traffic, at least if you discount the people that are coming into the Dragon from Tennessee. There's a lot of traffic that comes in this way, and there's a lot more twisty roads over in Tennessee too. A lot of people overlook those. The pavement, to me, tends to be a little bit better than North Carolina overall. The condition of the pavement, I guess the state of Tennessee takes care of the pavement a little bit better, but you can see some chunks right there. They kicked all the semis off 3, 4, 5 years ago, I think. But it was not a shocking thing to see tractor trailers coming up here, you know, 60-foot trailers coming up here being pulled through these turns, and they just wouldn't make it. And they would pull the trailers off in the road because you can't make these turns. And they finally said, no more tractor trailers up here, especially dumbasses that don't know how to drive them. But there's no reason they should be coming up through here anyway. It's a shortcut, I guess, but, you know, it may take you hours to get your tractor pulled out of here. And then what are you going to do? Back the tractor out, all the way back out? I'm pretty sure you can, in the hands of a good driver, you can pull your trailer through this insanity of twisties. But I've seen them halfway hanging off the side of the mountain. I've seen them, you know, almost hitting oncoming vehicles because there's nowhere for them to go. And it's just absolutely insane for a big tractor coming up here on the weekends, because you're gonna stop traffic. There's just no way around it. You're gonna pull the trailer, or your tractor is gonna be in the other lane trying to navigate some of these corners, and you know, you're gonna stop traffic just because you want to take a shortcut. Anyway, they outlawed it. I think it's no more trailers over 20 feet long. So I did get a chance to run the dragon before the circus started, and as you can see, the circus is starting to get wound up here. And this is 11 o'clock North Carolina time on a Friday morning, and you can imagine what it looks like 11 o'clock Saturday with this kind of craziness going on already. And I took a real quick walk around the Tree of Shame, which is an icon. If you don't know, this is where they string all the parts that they find in the ditch, and often some of the canyons they string them to this tree to give you an idea of what the dragon can do to your bike. If they hung the dead bodies up here, it would probably smell pretty bad, but it might actually break a few of the trees. I think maybe a few people get killed up here every year, just because they're riding beyond their skill level, or somebody else in the opposite lane is riding beyond their skill level. But it happens, and the Tree of Shame is just the icon that reflects the fact that this is a dangerous place. It's so much fun. I recommend that you come up here, but just beware that it's the hazards exist and there be dragons.